So I'll start with this, Sam. Can we expect any movement amongst the top 10 ranked players?
I would think so. I think there's going to be a lot of variance in that top 10. I'm pretty confident about the names themselves, but where they might wind up might be a completely different story. So a couple of players that I would focus on there in particular. William Eklund is probably the most improved player, if not in all the draft class, for sure, of all the European players. I mean, this guy is just an amazing playmaker, a dynamic guy, a little bit slight of frame, but to be able to do what he did in the SHL this year, ranked 5th all-time in terms of first-year draft-eligible players. So that's in some pretty thick company there. Another guy I'd be looking at would be Mason McTavish, who played with the Peterborough Petes. He's a guy that went over and played in Switzerland where his dad played, and he had a massive rise to prominence. Yeah, we knew he could score goals with Peterborough, but what we didn't know was just how complete his game was. And he showed it off at the under-18s for Canada, winning a gold medal. He transitioned over to center, which is where he played most of his minor hockey. Did not play there really his first year in Peterborough, so he gave scouts maybe a little bit of a different look than what they anticipated. But the complete game for this guy was simply sensational. He is a bulldog, and what I projected him to be at the start, maybe in the 20 range, I think now is comfortably inside that top 10. It'll be interesting to see how high either of those two guys go. Don't sleep on the goaltender, Jesper Wallstedt. I think he comes into play with Detroit as early as pick 6.
Okay, how about Owen Power? We got to talk about him, the projected first overall pick. He was on NHL Network quite a few weeks ago. Mike Johnson asked him if he would go back to school, if he'd try to go to the NHL right away, and he kind of said maybe he might go the college route. How would that affect his standing in the draft if that were the case?
I don't think it would affect it at all, and there's a couple of reasons behind that. First of all, you're looking at 2 truncated seasons, so you've missed out essentially on a year worth of development. And not that it really matters, because I do believe he can play in the NHL right now. The second thing would be, if you look at this Michigan powerhouse team, I mean, you're talking about 3 first-rounders, probably all inside the top 10. You're talking about a recruiting class, Samaskovich, Dylan Duke. You're talking about guys that exist there, and Brisson and Bordelot. I mean, it's unbelievable the job Mel Pearson and the University of Michigan has done to get all these players recruited. So I think there's an opportunity for this young man to say, hey, I want a little bit of this college life, if you will, get to the big house, watch a game, go to basketball, and maybe win an NCAA title with a stacked Michigan team. So I don't think it deters Buffalo at all. I think Buffalo has a lot of house cleaning to do. And so to extend them by another year, it doesn't happen often. Eric Johnson back in, it was 06, I guess it was, did it. But it doesn't happen often. But I don't think it affects his status at all.
All right, fair enough. We've also got the expansion draft quickly approaching. Do you anticipate that picks are going to move around ahead of the draft for some of these teams?
Oh, yeah. I don't think Ron Francis, Jackie, is going to be able to manipulate things the way George McPhee did with Vegas. But I do think that when you come into a situation where teams are cash-strapped and revenues are tight because of the pandemic, what you have in your arsenal, and the number one weapon you have in that arsenal, is cap space. And so, yeah, hey, we'll take a couple of big contracts, no problem. It's going to cost you. And it's going to cost you picks, and a lot of picks, and high picks. And so I think Ron Francis is going to be able to leverage his cap space. And I think when you look at what George McPhee did, yeah, he moved players around. Hey, don't draft this guy. Okay, I won't, but make sure that you give me a pick in return. So I think the ability for Ron Francis to really control the narrative here is going to be interesting. And when you consider all those teams that have multiple picks, starting with what you saw in the graphic there, Columbus, 3 of them, I think all of a sudden Seattle's probably looking at getting another pick inside the first round and maybe beyond into 2022, 2023. I got to tell you, I know a lot about the staff that they've put together, and I think that's a group that really needs a full year of being out to see players live and in person to really have a significant impact for Seattle.
Well, the anticipation is building for this Seattle Kraken roster. We got Ken Danico in the house, Sammy. So you know there's going to be a Devils-related question, okay? This is just the facts. But the Devils are in a unique position. They've already got Jack Hughes on their roster. So is it possible that we see them acquire another Hughes in the draft?
Yeah, Dano, I got the fingers taped together for you. I know you did in the playoffs. We're going to do it here in the broadcast. But listen, there's definitely that possibility. And I think when you talk about knowing the family, knowing what Jack brings to the table, you get pretty confident about what you're going to get in Luke Hughes. And, of course, he addresses a position that I think the Devils could use some help at. So it is a possibility. But let's not sleep on Brant Clark. His brother Graham recently signed with the New Jersey Devils. He's one of the top prospects in their organization. He has yet to play an NHL game, but I don't think it'll be too long before he gets there. So now you're looking at the opportunity for New Jersey to draft one of two brothers that potentially play with the Devils here sometime down the road. Luke Hughes, I think because he's one of the younger players in the draft, it might be a little while. But when it comes to Graham and Brandt Clark, who knows? He went over and played well in the men's league in Slovakia. So I don't think he's quite ready for action in the NHL yet, but he's probably not too far off.
All right, well, Sam, I'm going to throw one more quick one at you because the Cup final is now over. Cole Caufield, a huge part of the run for the Montreal Canadiens. I know you've been watching him a lot longer than most people. Were you surprised at how easily he was able to just fit into that lineup?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, but I think going back that extra year probably helped him out in terms of his development. And he reminded me a lot of Alex DeBrincat, who I watched play a lot in Erie for 3 years, putting up over 50 goals in each of those years. So you have to have that strong lower half. You have to play with a little bite so that people don't take advantage of you. And then you have to be in a position to utilize your best skill, and that's scoring goals. He did it when he arrived in the AHL really quickly, and he did it right away in the NHL. So I wasn't entirely surprised, but I do think that extra year really helped out a lot.
Yeah, when you have a nickname, Goal Caufield, and you haven't even played a full season in the NHL, you know you're kind of a big deal, right? But the expansion draft around the corner, the NHL draft right after that, and Sam Cosentino will be with us for all of our coverage. Thank you, friend.